So we've come out filming today and we've come to set up a brand new tarp. It's not got any guy lines attached, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to show Jason, the cameraman. Let's give us a wave, Jason. Hello. How I attach guy lines to a tarp. So it's nothing too technical, but a couple of little nuances which I thought I'd share with the cameraman here. And yeah, let's get stuck in. First thing to do then is just to get the tarp onto the ridgeline. So I've already attached the ridgeline to one anchor, it's a tree over there, and then I've got the ridgeline here. So most of the tarps you'll work with, I'll have these loops going all the way along the midpoint. If they don't, it's just got loops on the ends, and just thread it through the ends. The first thing we want to do really is just get this set up hanging in space so that we can tie everything on nice and easily. There we go. So we'll thread those through and then get all the twigs out of the way. We'll just tie that off onto this tree. Alright, now I've got my tarp suspended, it's nice and easy to work with. We can move on to adding all the guy lines, of which I've got a pocket full. Look at that, and that never happens. Pulled the right strings out first time. Alright, so the first thing I like to do when setting my tarps up is have prusik loops on the ridgeline. It basically means that I've got a way of anchoring the tarp along this line and pulling it nice and tight initially, so that it doesn't get pulled around as we tie all the corners off. So this would be the first knot. So in the guy lines that we provide at Howell, they've got these short lines just for tying these prusik loops. And what we do is we fold one of those in half, so we've got a loop. And with that, basically on my side of this ridge line, I've got a loop above and I've got two tails hanging below just there. So what we would do is pass the tails through the loop once, so it goes all the way around and then up and through that loop again, so that when it's done we've got a little fist hanging onto the line. I'll do that again for you. We want one of these on each side of the tarp. So I've got my loop over the line and I've got these tails swinging below. So we swing the tails up and through the loop once, like that, and then up and through the loop again, just like that, and then cinch it all down. So that's the prusik loop tied on. And then it's up for debate whether you want to attach that to your tarp or just have them free floating. Sometimes I'll just put a little reef knot in the end, like that, so that with a stick off the forest floor, any old twig will do, we can basically pass the prusik loop through the tarp, pop a little twig in, and then that's attached just there. So that's a quick little tip that basically stops you having the tarp permanently attached to your prusik. If you're kind of going regularly and you know 9 times out of 10 you're going to be setting up the tarp in the same way, you could just directly tie that prusik loop onto the webbing of the tarp. It's the same knot, just a little reef knot. So anchor that on, and that way it's attached in that way. So now we can pull that along and that'll anchor out nice and tight. Okay. The next thing we need to do is attach all of our guy lines to the corner loops of the tarp. So this would be one of the guy lines. Just unravel that one for you. Alright, so there's a bunch of different ones that we could do. So I'll run through a few, just so you know. So we were talking earlier, Jason, about the sheep bend. Yeah, so you could do that here as well. So I've got my loop essentially, and then I've got that line. So just as I did earlier, you could just thread it through, go under and over, and pass it through itself there, and that's attached. So quite a common way of doing it. It's quite kind on the webbing, so because we're just wrapping it around and we're not locking it on, it's quite kind there. But when it's not in tension, that can sort of work free as well. So I tend not to use that one myself.
So these knots as well that you're showing us, are these, obviously today you're using cord that is, you know, like shop bought.
Yeah.
If you were to make natural cordage, could these be done in the same way, or is there different knots?
Similar, yeah. So the prusik loops will be quite rough on the cord. So it's not that it wouldn't work, but they would wear out quite quickly just with the friction of going backwards and forwards. So I might adopt a different method there, or just ignore that altogether, potentially. But yeah, the sheep bend for natural cordage, yeah, that's ideal basically. So that again, that wrapping, that kind of long curving wraps around the webbing, allows the natural cordage to bend rather than sort of kink, and again sort of reduces friction. Another way you could do that then with natural cordage and with the synthetic, and probably one of my favourite ways really, just because it's simple, is to just create a loop and tie an overhand. So just that simple kind of Scout's knot, just an overhand knot. So I've got a loop there. All I have to do here is then pop that through the webbing and pass the string through the loop, and it's kind of like a hangman's noose. It just pulls up nice and tight. It's not going to come off. Like that, and it essentially forms a reef knot on the loop. But again, that's quite easy on the ropes, and yeah, it's just really simple. So it locks on, it not come off accidentally, unlike perhaps the sheep bend. But it means that if you want to undo it in order to get access to a bit of string for some reason, if you wanted to take the string off, or you just need a bit around camp, you can take it off really quickly and easily. So I quite like that one. The final knot then that I might use for this is called the Bluntline hitch. So I quite like this knot because it's got a history with sailors tying ropes onto sails, that sort of thing. This is a big flappy piece of fabric. So yeah, I quite like it for that. The way we do it is to just pass the string through the loop, giving yourself just a bit of workable slack really. And the knot essentially is a clove hitch onto itself. So all we do is we pass the working end over the top of the guy line and back up over itself to form that loop, and then quite simply it just pops up through the middle hole to form a clove hitch on itself here, and that will shuffle closed to the fabric but lock tight. So this is a great knot for attaching guy lines that you pretty much never want to get off, but it does mean that it's fully solid. There's no amount of flapping or wind that's going to undo that knot, and like I say, it's quite nice to have that sort of nautical history going along with it as well. So that's the last one. So I would do that to all four corners with all four of my guy lines, and then hank them up with a butterfly hank, which we filmed elsewhere, leaving all four guy lines attached to the tarp. Just makes for pretty fast deployment if it's raining, so you can, on a day like today, throw a tarp up without getting too wet in the process, and it means that everything's neat and tidy, you know where it all is. So I tend to leave my tarps with everything attached, just like that. That's how we'd attach guy lines to a tarp.